This is a Roblox game that I made, or at least tried to make last year. Yeah, it's kinda empty. So I'm going to be recreating this game into something so much better. But first, what even is this game supposed to be? Well, this game was intended to be a 1v1 game that relied on reaction time. Pretty much, the premise of the game was you and a friend would have a duel. Then, the game would choose a random number between 1 and 100. After it picks the number, you would take a pace back each second until that specific number is called. Then whoever clicks the fastest wins. In this case, whoever had the fastest reaction time wins. Well, now that you know what the game was supposed to be, let's now get started on recreating the game. Firstly, I'm going to start with getting the foundations of the game done. Therefore, I'm only going to start with getting one of the games to work, and afterwards just duplicate the finished game so that multiple rounds can be played at the same time. To start with, we first need to have a way for the game to get the two players that are going to duel. So we'll start with the queue system. To make it easier, I'm just going to use proximity prompts to send information of the players that would like to join the queue. I also made the two proximity prompts player 1 and 2, so you can choose which side of the platform you'll be on. I then made it so the game will start once two players have connected to the queues, and use the for instance variable loop to get the players who are in the queue, and teleport them to the platform they're going to duel on. Next, I started working on the core duel system that will actually allow the rounds to work. I started by making the game get the selected number that the players will shoot on, as well as the number of steps that the players will take before the selected number is shown. Then I made a local script for the players that will detect any time they click. This then sends a remote event to the server script detecting the player that clicked and will determine if that player is one of the two players dueling, as well if they're allowed to click. Then determining which player to take health from and ending the game if that player has lost all 3 lives. I also made a function that acts as a new round for any rounds after round 1, as I intended on adding a quick tutorial for the first round, so that new players understand how to play the game. I also scrapped the idea of using player on the platform, and instead duplicated the player's character, as it would be easier to use for animations later. After getting the round system to work, and the game functioning properly, I started working on the UI. Since the game would be quite small, I decided to just store all the UI used in the game on one screen GUI. I also decided to split the UI based on the game it was for, therefore game 1 would have its own UI, and instead of every game using the same UI. I structured the UI with 2 players getting their own little UI, and the player's name and profile at the top, with their lives at the bottom. For now, the UI is just going to be basic, and I'll come back later to improve on how it looks. I then added some round information in the middle of the player's info, with it showing the round number and number being displayed. I made a local script for the UI so it relied on values for its text. Therefore, I can change what the text says from the main script instead of sending a message to this local script to change the information. I then just added some events to tell the UI when it should be visible and which players to make the UI visible to. After finishing up the basic UI, I decided to have a set starter character so it's far easier to make animations with. I went for a cowboy/outlaw theme with the character having a cowboy's hat and a bandana. I then started making the animations and went with R6 since it was easier. I planned on there being an animation from the players idle, moving, won or lost, around, won or lost the game, and shooting too early resulting in them winning or losing. I then had the game load the animations for the characters when the game started, since that's when it duplicates the player's character. After finishing up the animations and making them work, I started working on making the game look and function better. I started by adding a leave option for the queue, so you weren't stuck until someone else joined the queue. I also made a camera that looks down at the platform, so if I ever wanted to add cutscenes to the game, then I could. I next added a revolver shot sound whenever the round ended, player shot too early, or whenever the game ended itself, with the game ending animation firing 6 shots. I also decided to start improving how the UI looks and added some corners to the UI as well as some strokes and transparency to make it look slightly better. I then started working on a map. I decided to make the map look a little bit like a small Wild West looking town and just try to copy some buildings online, but modeling skills weren't that good. I also decided to add a pathway through the middle of the town that would be used for the platforms. I also decided to add a quick billboard GUI to the platform so that other players can see if someone's waiting in the queue. The final thing to do was to add more platforms to the game, as well as some bug fixing. I just ended up with making there be 4 platforms. meaning the max server size will be 8. I put 2 platforms in the middle of the town on the main road, and 1 platform on each side of the town. In terms of bug fixing, a lot of bugs came from adding 3 new platforms, mostly due to me forgetting to change a value or 2, so the game knew the script was from, let's say, platform 3 instead of platform 1. Now that the game is done, I turned an old Roblox game that had, well, literally nothing, into one that at least functions. Is this game going to do well? Absolutely not. Am I expecting anyone to play this? No. Should you click the link in the game description and play it so it doesn't have 0 visits? Well, yes.